Hello and welcome to News at 10 on Rajya Sabha TV. I'm Aishwarya Kapoor. Let us begin by taking a look at the headlines that we are tracking this hour. Budget session of Parliament to begin today. Government appeals for cooperation. Opposition puts onus of smooth functioning of session on centre. RSS Chief Mohan Bhagwat triggers another row over reservation. Says non-political committee should decide eligibility for quota. Opposition says suggestion against the spirit of constitution. Haryana Chief Minister to hold talks with Venkaiah Naidu over Jat reservation. This after fresh violence in state from protesters demanding written assurance from the government. Jolt to YSR Congress in Andhra Pradesh. 5 of its leaders switch side to join the TDP. TDP Chief Naidu placates party members over new entrants. And Pakistan says Pathankot mastermind and Jaish-e Chief Maulana Masood Azhar is in protective custody since 14th of January. Says SI team to probe attack will visit India in the first few days of March. Well, the budget session of Parliament begins today. The session is expected for a stormy start with major opposition parties planning to corner the government on JNU row and other issues. Now, President Pranab Mukherjee will address a joint sitting of Parliament today. After the conclusion of the President's address, half an hour of government business is expected to be transacted in both houses of Parliament. The government has asserted that it was as much concerned about recent incidents in different universities as any other party and urged the Parliament to thoroughly discuss their causes and consequences and show the way forward. Now, the main opposition Congress has put the onus of smooth functioning of Parliament on the government. Lok Sabha Speaker Sumitra Mahajan also held an all-party meeting on Monday evening. She hoped that the House will run smoothly and all issues will be discussed.
सभी पार्टी के लीडर्स आए हुए थे और बैठक में चर्चा भी बहुत अच्छी सौहार्दपूर्ण वातावरण में चर्चा हुई है। इन जनरल एक कॉन्शियस बना है कि पार्लियामेंट चलना चाहिए।
Earlier on the eve of the budget session, Parliamentary Affairs Minister Venkaiah Naidu assured the opposition that there will be discussions on every issue inside Parliament. Naidu urged the opposition to debate and discuss the issues without disrupting the session. However, the opposition has accused the government of what it called setting the agenda for disruption and made it clear that no key bills will be passed in the first half of the session.
The government has urged the opposition to adopt a positive approach during the upcoming budget session of Parliament that begins Tuesday. After an all-party meet on Monday, Parliamentary Affairs Minister Venkaiah Naidu said the government was ready to discuss the JNU row and the Rohit Vemula suicide case besides some other issues.
Everybody has assured that they will all cooperate in fully in functioning the House. Some of them said government should be willing to take up the important issues, burning issues. Some people use the word burning issues. And from the government side, I have assured them government is ready to discuss any issue, every issue.
The government is keen to push its legislative agenda, including the GST and real estate bills in this session. But the opposition said that only the bills with general consensus should be passed, making it clear that it will not allow passage of any key bill, including the GST, in the first half of the session.
जो भी कंट्रोवर्शियल बिल है वो इस वक्त नहीं लाने के लिए हमने कहा और जो सब सर्वसम्मति से जो भी बिल होगा वही हम पारित करेंगे और दूसरे बिल्स वो मार्च के बाद अप्रैल में जो लेना है तो सभी से कंसेंसस लेकर उसको पेश किया जाए।
The opposition also accused the government of setting the agenda for disruption and not wanting the parliament to function.
Unfortunately, the government has made it a habit to create conditions before every parliament session begins for potential disruption of that session. Creating that agenda is what the government is doing.
प्रधानमंत्री जी ने कहा है कि उनकी सरकार अस्थिर करने की कोशिश हो रही है। हम मानते हैं सरकार की बात छोड़िए, देश अस्थिर होने की बात हो रही है। उसके बारे में सदन में चर्चा होनी चाहिए।
The budget session of Parliament is expected to be very stormy. The first showdown between the Treasury and the opposition benches is expected in Rajya Sabha on the 24th of February, the first working day of the session. The real budget will be presented on the 25th and general budget will be presented on the 29th of February. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And now an update on the quota row by the Jats. While Haryana Chief Minister Manohar Lal Khattar will hold talks with the committee headed by Venkaiah Naidu on Jat reservation issue today. Well, the panel held its first meeting on Monday and called Khattar for deliberations to ascertain the state's views on the subject. Now, this comes as fresh violence erupted in Rohtak and Sonipat as protesters continue to block roads, demanding a written assurance from the government that the community will be given reservation.
युवा पीढ़ी के लिए हम मांग कर रहे हैं कि सरकार तुरंत इस आरक्षण को वापस ले। हमारा कोई बैर नहीं है और जब तक हमारा आरक्षण हमारा पट्टा नहीं मिल जाएगा हम ऐसे ही आंदोलन करते रहेंगे।
Despite an assurance from the government for reservation to Jats, violence continued unabated in Haryana on Monday. Stone-pelting mobs attacked security personnel, triggering a clash in which 3 civilians were killed, raising the death toll to 19 in the 9-day-old stir. Incidents of arson and violence were reported from several districts, including Sonipat, Rohtak, Kaithal and Hisar. Protesters also continue to block some roads, including the arterial Delhi-Ambala highway. On Monday evening, Home Minister Rajnath Singh took stock of the prevailing situation in the state with top officials, including NSA Ajit Doval, Army Chief General Dalbir Singh Suhag, besides others. The centre directed security forces to use force to clear blockades.
हमारे रोड पे 2 शोरूम्स हैं, दोनों को चलाया गया जी। पहले लूटा गया फिर चलाया गया जी। सड़क पे ला के रख दिया हमें।
हरियाणा के तमाम भाई बहनों से, तमाम नौजवानों से, तमाम राजनीतिक दलों के लोगों से, तमाम सामाजिक संगठनों के प्रमुख लोगों से ये अपील है कि हरियाणा में शांति की स्थापना में सब लोग सहयोग करें।
Meanwhile, Haryana Chief Minister Manohar Lal Khattar will arrive in the national capital today for examining the demand of Jats for quota in central jobs. He will hold discussions with the BJP-appointed high-powered committee headed by Union Minister Venkaiah Naidu. The panel held its first meeting on Monday. Separately, Haryana Cabinet held a meeting taking the decision to introduce a bill on Jat reservation in the upcoming assembly session.
सारी परिस्थिति की समीक्षा कैबिनेट में हुई है, किस प्रकार के हालात चल रहे हैं, किस प्रकार से प्रदेश में शांति बहाल हो और शांति बहाली का आंदोलन किस प्रकार से वापिस हो। सरकार ने सब प्रकार के स्टेप जो मांगे थी उसके लिए उठा लिए हैं। सरकार कह चुकी है कि जाटों को आरक्षण देंगे, बजट सत्र में विधेयक लाएंगे। जिन दुकानदार भाइयों की जिनकी भी जो नुकसान संपत्ति का हुआ है किसी का भी, सरकार उसके लिए कंपनसेशन देगी, मुआवजा देगी।
Meanwhile, the Munak Canal, which is vital for water supply to Delhi, that sustained heavy damages during the Jat agitation, has been partially repaired. The water supply to Delhi is expected to be restored by Tuesday. Jats in Haryana have been demanding reservation in government jobs for years. The previous Congress government had announced special backward caste for the community in 2013, but the Punjab and Haryana High Court stalled the move last year. The Supreme Court had also rejected the inclusion of Jats in the centre's OBC list. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Now to the other top story. Now RSS Chief Mohan Bhagwat has stirred another controversy with his statements on reservation. Bhagwat has suggested that a non-political committee should be formed to decide on who should be eligible for reservation. Now, in an interactive session of a Chamber of Commerce in Kolkata on Monday, Bhagwat said, and I quote him now, "I feel a committee should be formed to decide who are eligible for reservation. The committee should be apolitical so that there are no vested interests. Which section of the society should be brought forward, for how long they should be given reservation. A time-bound program should be chalked out regarding it. But only because of someone's birth, a person does not get the opportunity. This should not be the case. As long as this problem prevails, this situation, that is reservation, will be there," quote unquote. Now, Bhagwat's comments come in the wake of the centre announcing the setting up of a committee under Union Parliamentary Affairs Minister Venkaiah Naidu to examine the quota demand for the Jat community. Now, Bhagwat's statement came in for severe criticism from the opposition, who alleged that the suggestion is against the spirit of the Constitution.
आरएसएस सरसंघचालक मोहन भागवत जी he had called for review of reservation in favor of Dalits and backwards. Later on, Bharatiya Janata Party resigned. Then current Lok Sabha Speaker, she expressed regrets on extending of reservation in favor of Dalits and backwards. And now again he calls for a review committee. It reflects a anti-Dalit, anti-poor, anti-backward mindset of Modi government. Congress party wants to respectfully warn as also tell Modi government that we will not accept tampering with or repeal of reservation of the poor of this country, of the Dalit and backward of this country.
कांग्रेस को ये बोलने का अधिकार नहीं है। सभी को याद है 1974 के इमरजेंसी, जो घटना घट रही है वो फ्रीडम ऑफ स्पीच ही है। इसी कारण ये घटना घट रही है। इमरजेंसी लगाने वाले लोग, लोगों के मुंह पर बंद करने वाले लोग, अभिव्यक्ति को बंद करने वाले कांग्रेस पार्टी को मुंह नहीं है इस पर एक शब्द भी कहे।
And on to some other news now. Well, 5 Jawaharlal Nehru University students, including Umar Khalid, who are facing sedition charges, say that they will not surrender to the police. They said that the police can come and arrest them. The university had denied permission to the Delhi police to enter the premises. The Delhi police says the students must join the probe.
Facing sedition charges, the 5 Jawaharlal Nehru University students say they will not resist arrest. Lookout notices had been issued against students Umar Khalid, Anand Prakash Narayan, Ashutosh Kumar, Rama Naga and Anirban Bhattacharya on Saturday. All of them are alleged to have raised anti-India slogans at an event to mark the 3rd anniversary of Parliament attack convict Afzal Guru's execution on 9th of February.
एक तरह का मैंने टेरर क्रिएट किया गया था, एक तरह का विचेंटिंग हो रहा था, हम लोग की बहुत सारे थ्रेट को लाए, तो हम लोग को एक एडवाइस मिला कि आप लोग को एक सेफ जगह में अभी होना पड़ेगा, इसलिए हम लोग जेएनयू के आसपास थे, लेकिन हमेशा से यही कोशिश कर रहे थे।
अब आप क्या करेंगे, सरेंडर करेंगे या क्या करेंगे? अब आप
वही मैं बोल रहा था कि हम लोग हर एक टाइम कोशिश कर रहे थे कि जो भी प्रक्रिया होता है, जो जुडिशियल मैंने प्रोसेस होता है, उसमें हम लोग कोऑपरेट करेंगे। पुलिस को बुलाना या फिर ना बुलाना वो जेएनयू के वीसी को डिसीजन लेना है।
The students also rejected charges that they or any other JNU student raised anti-national slogans at the event. The students also alleged attempts to target some students and associate them with terrorism, even as they called for a stronger stand on the part of Vice Chancellor Jagdish Kumar.
हमारा एक सीधे ये है कि वाइस चांसलर जादवपुर वाइस चांसलर की तरह एक स्टैंड ले, और ये जब ये साबित हो चुका है कि जिस वीडियो पर ये लोग इतना उछल रहे थे वो वीडियो ही फेक है, तो हमारे ऊपर सारे खारिज किए जाए सारे केसेस।
Police teams have been positioned outside the JNU campus and have been told to wait for students to surrender.
अगर उनको पुलिस ढूंढ रही है, अगर पुलिस को उनकी आवश्यकता है, तो उन्हें जो है पुलिस की इन्वेस्टिगेशन ज्वाइन करनी चाहिए। अगर वो निर्दोष हैं, अपनी निर्दोषी का उन्हें साक्ष्य पेश करना चाहिए।
Meanwhile, Jawaharlal Nehru University has granted 7 days extension to the high-level committee set up by it to inquire into the event organized on 9th of February. The deadline to submit its report has now been deferred to 3rd of March. The opposition is gearing to corner the government on the budget session over the issue. Congress President Sonia Gandhi made a stinging attack on the centre, saying it has lost all sense of balance over the JNU row. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And now our special segment on budget expectations. Well, after facing a huge funds cut last year, educationists are hoping for some relief in the upcoming budget. Experts feel that after 2 years in power, the government should now address the pending issues in education, including training and recruiting qualified teachers.
Universal education for students up to 18 years, more financial transparency in Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan are two key expectations from the upcoming union budget. Educationists are seeking increased budgetary allocation to meet Right to Education Act requirements.
They have to expand this RT from pre-primary to higher secondary education. और 18 साल तक के बच्चों को शिक्षा के दायरे में इनको लाना होगा और आरटी को ही एक्सपेंड करना, क्योंकि आरटी के अलावा और हमारे पास कोई जरिया नहीं है जिसमें विद इन टाइम फ्रेम हम अपने स्कूल्स को और इनरोलमेंट्स को और रिटेंशन को कायम कर सकें.
Other focus areas remain the poor teaching quality, access and innovation. Last year, the government brought in initiatives like the School Assessment Program and the Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya New Teachers Training Program to address shortage of quality teachers in both rural and urban areas. Despite them, the nation still needs 9.4 lakh new teachers.
We need to relook at how we are training our teachers, the teacher educator programs. So it starts from there. It starts from using innovative teaching learning material, perhaps, right? It also looks at how we should be interweaving our ICT resources sensibly, judiciously, and not because it's fashionable to do so or because schools have that facility. It comes down to how do we do our assessments. So it's a kind of a cyclic process.
Another worrying feature for the government is the poor educational outcomes. Only 48% of Class 5 students can read a Class 2 text, while 37% government primary schools do not comply with 30:1 pupil-teacher ratio. 60 lakh children are still out of school.
Building a school and enrolling children into school is not the end in itself. Ensuring that children get an education is the main objective. And I think on that, the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan failed miserably. And that's a fairly complicated narrative, as you know, because the right to education also was enacted in 2010 that had some very clear direction for schools on achieving a certain set of infrastructure norms. And as many, including myself, have critiqued the right to education, that it stopped at infrastructure norms and didn't actually focus on the big question of learning.
In the background of the emphasis on skill education and other initiatives, the low levels of learning are a challenge for both the state and the centre in arranging resources and monetary support. A bigger cause for concern is monitoring and maintaining accountability at every level. Anshu Singh's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
And time now for a very short break. We'll be right back. Keep watching Rajya Sabha TV.
Gyan Chopper is the ancient version of Indian snakes and ladders. This intriguing game was popular among the old, the young, and the rulers as well. The chopper has its origin in the Jain philosophy. It tells the story of virtue. Each square, in turn, also narrates a message of wisdom.
Welcome back. News from Andhra Pradesh now. In a setback to the YSR Congress, 4 of its MLAs and 1 MLC have defected to the ruling Telugu Desam party. Now the leaders switched over to the TDP in the presence of Chief Minister N. Chandrababu Naidu, who is also the TDP president. The YSR Congress legislators drove to the riverfront residence of Naidu in Vijayawada, where they were formally welcomed into the TDP. Several ministers were also present on the occasion. The TDP chief held a series of talks with his party leaders from Kurnool and Kadapa districts to placate them over the entry of the new legislators. Kadapa TDP leader Ram Subba Reddy had been strongly opposing the entry of his bitter rival Adi Narayanan into the party, although he said that he would go by the party chief's decision. Now, Pakistan has said that Jaish-e-Mohammed chief Masood Azhar, that India has named as the mastermind of the Pathankot attack, is under protective custody since 14th of January. Pakistan Prime Minister's Foreign Affairs Advisor Sartaj Aziz said that Azhar, along with a few other operatives of the Jaish-e-Mohammed, have been kept under protective custody and that some of the terror outfit's premises have also been sealed. He said that action will follow against Azhar and others the moment evidence becomes available. Aziz said that a special investigation team from Pakistan may visit Pathankot in the first few days of the March month to probe the attack and that his country was pursuing the investigation seriously. Well, this is for the first time that a top functionary of the Pakistan government has confirmed that Azhar is in custody in that country, although there were earlier reports contrary to that effect. The Pakistani authorities had lodged an FIR in connection with the Pathankot attack on 18th of February without naming Azhar. The terror attack led to the postponement of the foreign secretary level talks between the two countries. And news from Jammu and Kashmir, well, the operation to flush out militants in Pampore ended last evening with 3 militants being killed. Now, 5 security personnel and a civilian also had lost their lives in the operation. Now, clearing operations are on, with the army suspecting a terror outfit Lashkar-e-Toiba behind the attack.
A 48-hour gun battle ended in the Pampore area of Pulwama on Monday. The operation claimed the lives of 3 terrorists, 2 army captains, a commando, 2 CRPF personnel and a civilian. The army said the Lashkar-e-Toiba was behind the strike.
ऑपरेशन अभी जो है उसमें 3 मिलिटेंट को मार दिया गया है और उनके साथ जो है उनके हथियार और काफी मात्रा में जो है वॉरलाइक स्टोर वो रिकवर हुआ है और अभी जो बिल्डिंग को पूरा सिक्योर करने का और सैनिटाइज करने का वो प्रोसेस अभी चल रहा है.
Mopping up operations are on, with security personnel sanitizing the Entrepreneurship Development Institute campus spread over 3 buildings. Many civilians were trapped inside the building, who were all successfully evacuated on Saturday.
Large number of civilians at that point of time in that building. So immediately our focus was to evacuate the civilians and that they should not suffer any casualty. 120 odd civilians were evacuated in these bulletproof vehicles.
The terrorists were holed up inside a multi-story complex on the Srinagar-Jammu National Highway. The security forces managed to confine the terrorists in the machine room of the building. It was the deadliest suicide attack near Srinagar in 6 years. The encounter started after terrorists attacked a CRPF bus in Pampore. They killed 2 jawans and injured 11 before hiding inside the building. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And on to some international news now. Well, the US-Russia brokered Syria ceasefire will take effect at midnight on 27th of February. And the announcement came at a time when Syria is reeling under a civil war. However, Syrian rebels see flaws in the truce plan, as the ceasefire will not apply to Islamic State and Al-Qaeda's Nusra Front.
A ceasefire agreed amid spurting violence in Syria. The US and Russia have announced a planned cessation of hostilities in the war-torn country beginning from this weekend. The joint statement came after Obama telephoned his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin to discuss efforts to establish the cessation of hostilities.
This cessation of hostilities will apply to all parties in Syria except for ISIL, except for al-Nusra and other terrorist groups that have been so designated by the UN Security Council. In the coming days, the United States and our ISSG partners on the ceasefire task force will undertake a series of steps to implement the cessation of hostilities by February 27th.
Что касается ИГИЛ, Джабхат ан-Нусры и других террористических организаций, признанных в качестве таковых Советом Безопасности Организации Объединенных Наций,
Syrian rebels called it a flawed truce. Diplomats meanwhile said the truce might not be worth the paper it was written on. The UN is also skeptical, as it said cessation of hostilities excluding Islamic State and Nusra Front militants could be a big challenge in terms of monitoring the ceasefire. However, Turkey welcomed the truce plan.
If you have a ceasefire, cessation of hostilities, which does not cover territory which is dominated by al-Nusra and Daesh, ISIL, then that is, of course, a huge challenge for us in terms of monitoring, and that we have to face later. But it is a very complicated situation.
The cessation of hostilities allows the Syrian army, allied forces and Syrian opposition to respond in self-defense, a significant loophole which allows further attacks, including airstrikes against Islamic State and other militant groups. Rebels feel Assad and Russia will make it as an excuse to pound opposition-held territories. A mere truce, just on papers, is the last thing Syria needs at this critical juncture. A fresh UN report said Syria is a fractured state on the brink of collapse, with rampant war crimes by both Assad forces and IS. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Let's get you more international stories now in World Wrap. U.S. Republican presidential candidate Ted Cruz fired his campaign spokesperson, staffer Rick Tyler, after he promoted a doctored video of rival candidate Marco Rubio. Staffer had tweeted a story and subtitled a video that showed Rubio referring to the Bible as a good book, but with not many answers in it. Rubio's campaign actually said all the answers are in here. Cruz's campaign has been repeatedly accused of lies and dirty tricks by rival campaigns. Thousands of migrants remain stranded near Athens and Greece's northern border after Macedonia stopped taking Afghan refugees. Macedonia is allowing only Syrians and Iraqis in it. It comes just days after Austria imposed a daily limit of 80 asylum claims on its southern border. Greece protested against that decision. China on Monday said that military deployments in South China Sea are no different from U.S. deployments in Hawaii. The Chinese Foreign Ministry's comment comes ahead of a visit of Foreign Minister Wang Yi to the United States later this week. British Prime Minister David Cameron battled for his case at the floor of the House to avoid a Brexit. He warned leaving the European Union could hurt working people for years to come. He said that leaving EU will be a leap in the dark, just a day before the London mayor had opposed the EU deal. All the sports stories now in Sports Beat. Ferrari's Sebastian Vettel set the fastest time ahead of world champion Lewis Hamilton as Formula One pre-season tested started in Barcelona. Vettel's best lap was 0.47 seconds quicker than Hamilton, proving that Ferrari may be a challenge in 2016. Red Bull's Daniel Ricciardo was the third highest, a further 0.6 seconds behind, with Williams' Valtteri Bottas following. The IAAF Ethics Board has provisionally suspended Kenyan Athletics CEO Isaac Mwangi in the interests of the integrity of the sport. Mwangi has been suspended for 180 days pending investigation of the anti-doping control process in Kenya. Mwangi stood down as the CEO last week, saying that he was anxious to have his name cleared. Organizers in Zurich are making preparations for FIFA's Congress, which is set to begin on Friday. Delegates will debate and vote on a new president. In December, the former president, Sepp Blatter, was banned from the sport for 8 years for ethics violation. The main reform proposals of the National Soccer Associations will be incorporated and will come into effect from 26th of April. That's all in this edition of news. Thanks for watching.